We want to talk about removing the friction between PPM and Agile. I'm Kurt Steinle. I run product for PPM.
Hi, and I'm Steve Demchuk. I'm Chief Product Owner at Agile Central, what formerly was Rally. And we were actually laughing right there because we were recalling the first time we ever met each other. And we were sitting across from each other at a table talking about how our two products could work together. And Ryan Polk, he's right there, VP of Product. What did you call him and why did you call him that?
I called him Khrushchev. Those of you who are of a certain age remember Khrushchev and Kennedy at the Vienna conference, and Ryan had his shoe off, pounding on the table saying he would bury us.
We are going to bury you.
And this is how we started our relationship.
That's right,
together.
Which I thought was a good way to start it. But I'm actually kind of mad because he has to be Khrushchev, which means he was Kennedy. And I think he's giving himself a little bit too much credit for his good looks. But that's how we started thinking about this problem. And that is that there is a bunch of friction between when we start looking at this from the outside, right? That
there is.
Portfolio planning and then Agile. So how do we get through that?
If you look at this slide here, this is a classic thing that I think we wrestle with, and we've heard our customers talk about all the time. From a PPM perspective, Agile's a black box. I don't have visibility. I can't see the deliverables. It's this ongoing thing. I don't understand all of that.
Yeah, and then there's my side of it. So I'm the person that cares about getting product out the door. So I'm thinking of the other side, which is, what is my company's strategy? Are you asking me to define the strategy again? Because I don't know it, but I got to get work done. So what do you guys want us to do? What is actually funded? And then think about engineering. They keep asking us, well, why do I have to track anything? I just need to get my work done. And what? I have to do time tracking? Are you kidding me?
Exactly.
So we always bring that back to you.
But yet these two are very, this isn't about sitting on a table pounding shoes. These are actually two sides of the same coin, because it's really not waterfall versus Agile. We're really the funding vehicle, prioritization vehicle, the business lens, and these guys are the execution lens, really. And I'm actually trivializing that, so I'm going to have to kind of bear with me a little bit about that, but there's a very definite synergy between this. And so marrying this seesaw, I think, is very important for us. And one more comment before we get into this. One of the benefits of CA Agile and CA PPM, or Clarity and Rally, of a certain age, let's call it, is that we work together, I don't know, several times a week, every day. We haven't cracked the code on every problem, but we wrestle with these problems all day long with our customers to try to drive the value out of these joint solutions.
Yeah, when I look at this slide, it always reminds me of something, and that is agility only is going to matter. You can have a fast execution engine. We can build a bunch of stuff, but if I don't build the right things, the things that the business actually needs us to deliver, it's worthless. And so what we actually need governance. We need a way where we get things funded, but let's find a lightweight way. Let's solve something between the two of us, the two worlds we come from, so that not only am I fast at executing, but I'm executing on my business strategy so that we can realize the benefits of that.
Right. So some impediments. Lack of strategic execution alignment. We hear this from our customers all the time. Are we doing the right things? What am I funding? What's the prioritization around that funding? Those types of things. Suboptimal investment. I'm spending my dollars in the wrong areas. I can handle the other two there.
Yeah. I always think about that Agile adoption. We talk about transformations. People always ask me, am I a healthy Agile team? And my answer usually back is, are you delivering products? Are your customers happy? It's actually not, are you good at Agile? Agile is a mindset of how we continually get better. So I want to ask you, are you successful? Then probably you have a successful Agile adoption. And the last one, lack of visibility to key stakeholders. You know you got a problem when people are kept asking you, what's the status? What's the status? What's the status? And there are better ways so that people can find the status really easily. I think there are a ton of good ways, and that's where our products come into play.
Right. And the fact is that in most companies, this bimodal, as they were talking about in the earlier discussion this morning, this is here to stay, at least for the foreseeable future. 45% of the companies have some sort of a hybrid execution. The larger the organization, the more that you're going to see major projects, a proliferation of that type of activity. frankly, from our perspective, we shouldn't care. We have ways to optimize your business. We shouldn't be prescriptive on how you need to manage that business. So we have, as I was meeting with customers earlier today, we've got customers that use traditional complex waterfall to do things like assembly lines. You know, there's mergers and acquisitions, there's all kinds of different things going on there. And of course, there's engineering organizations. What we need to do is provide solutions that naturally come together and allow people the funding control, the visibility, the business lens, and the execution capabilities that they need.
Yeah, it's interesting to me the quote here that as revenue size increase, the use of Agile is smaller. And that hurts me in my heart. I don't like that. I don't want to see that. I think that's wrong. And so it's interesting when we've worked with people like Gartner, and they actually challenge us back. It used to be to say, Agile's your competitive differentiator. And now that's no longer true. Like, Agile is the way for you to stay in the game. And so as we start getting into larger games, larger bets, it's no longer the developers and engineers that need to be Agile, the business has to be Agile. Because think about this, if you got the teams working fast, but the way that you actually approve funding and the way that you actually get things out to your customers isn't fast, what are you doing? Cost of delay is going to still be there. You're still not going to get the revenue that you're looking for.
So I think this sort of kind of goes through the same thing that we just talked about, but are we focused on the right priorities? What are we funding? What are our teams working on? You know, where are we getting behind in our strategies? Are we getting the results from our investments? These are all things from a business lens that matter to us. As you adapt a more agile mindset, these things are still relevant, right? And they still need to be cared for.
Yeah, when I go to organizations and I look at how they track their work, and if people are tracking stories and tasks, like everybody has tasks, and everyone loves task managers, but at the end of the day, are those tasks actually helping you deliver features? Are they helping you deliver to your customers? Is the task important? And that's why I keep looking at this, that I think people get way too caught up in how fast they're getting work done, and they're not asking enough, are they getting the right work done?
This one's yours.
Yeah, this one is mine.
Yep.
So when we first started in Agile, it was all about enabling teams. And guess what? It still is. And the teams are not just engineering teams. Teams are product managers. Teams are executives. Teams are marketing. Let's talk about, Agile was really about small teams can make a big difference if you actually empower them to do that. But how do you empower them if you're on the left? So if you're really going to take a bunch of teams and tell them just to go do good work, and I'm not going to tell you how to do it because I'm a cool manager and I shouldn't tell you shouldn't help you do that. Just you go figure it out, you'll do good stuff. You're going to end up with that, and that is there's going to be, you might hit on one of those 10 things, but it's probably pretty rare. So when we see the next level of Agile, the next level of Agile actually is coordinated, and that is, it is our jobs as product managers to do our market research, to actually understand the industry and to set a direction. And that is okay. But you better, guess what? Your job is to set that vision and that strategy, but you better be listening to your engineering teams too. So if those two things don't actually end up being your strategy, you won't be successful. And then once you actually have that plan, you need to be orchestrated. So we need to plan on cadences, we need to deliver on demand. An old adage that I always loved is, people always ask me, well, how long should my iterations be? And you say, hey, the industry says 2 weeks. Think about two teams. One team's on 2 weeks, one team's on 3 weeks. That doesn't seem that disruptive, right? They're just a 1 week off. But actually what that means, they couldn't actually affect the other person's backlog for every 6 weeks. Why? We should all be on the same cadence in the way that we plan so that we can communicate and change each other's plans to deliver the best things. So this is what, we actually made this slide with a big customer I was working on. So I actually modeled this after a customer's, what they were really doing. And that was, they're using PPM, and they had this awesome portfolio process. But then they get down to the program layer. So now you imagine you're a business unit, you're a product, you're that next level down, you have your funding. Well, how are you managing your business? Spreadsheets, PowerPoints, stickies on a wall, and guess what? Those things don't really work. And so I always liken this to, here you have a smart portfolio, you have someone that's super intelligent, and you have teams ready to crush it. You have fast legs, but your middle, your core, is super weak. meaning you really don't know how to tell the head to get down to its legs. Your core is falling apart. Have you ever seen a great athlete with not a strong core? No. And so that's what we're here to do, is to make sure that that layer in between is actually the critical layer. The layer that gets the work done is how do you take that vision and strategy, turn it into something you can actually go build, and then get that to the teams.
Yours again?
Yeah, so 37% of product managers stated their efforts are aligned with their firm's business strategy. Even worse, I think there was a Harvard business case 2 years ago that said 95% of all employees do not know what their organization's strategy is. So that's a huge problem. And I think about when I was a developer, I'd work on things, get it done. The worst thing that could possibly happen is when I worked on something that didn't get out, that never got into the hands of our customers. And that's exactly what this does. If you keep working on things that aren't to your strategy, they probably won't actually get out into production. Probably no one will ever buy it. So this is a huge problem, especially if it's product managers.
Yeah.
If product managers are not working from the things that are funded, that are going to do your business,
right,
what are they doing?
Exactly.
Probably pet projects.
Yeah. This is also yours.
This is mine. Lack of business technology collaboration. So this is a huge problem. So if we keep disconnected, this is what's going to keep happening. We're going to amplify chaos. So what we mean by that is there's going to be one people that work out of that portfolio, and then there's the teams that are actually just working on whatever they're working on. That's a huge problem. And we don't want that. Agile was not at all said that only engineers make decisions. It doesn't say that. It means that we all should be making decisions, but let's have the right level of authority at the right places. The last thing I would just say is misaligning funding and resource allocation. I've watched this too many times.
Yeah.
Where, hey, we say we're gonna fund 30% of architecture, but yet we all know that every plan needs 60% of architecture. Why do we do that to ourselves? Let's actually align back to what we need to spend.
Right. So now we get to this, PPM meets effective Agile. And this is where we're starting to see this intersection. So I think earlier Jane Strauss was up here. I don't know if Jane's in the audience now, but with Sabre. And we had I've had the same conversation dozens of times, the same type of activity. At the very juncture, at the very beginning of this is what is it that we need to do? How does that align with our strategy? What are our priorities and how will we align our teams? And in most organizations that are not pure software development, these teams are somewhat fixed and in many cases very variable. They're varied based on the size of the project, the scope, and what they're doing. And people are delivering in multiple modes of activities. What's important is that it starts with effective alignment with the business, effective prioritization, understanding where the funding is going, aligning that funding to strategy, and then executing on that strategy. And then the actual execution of it is in the hands of the people that are actually doing the delivery. When you're in a steady state engineering organization, you may see it one way. You're building a bridge, you're going to see it an entirely different way. Like, you know, some of the folks here are doing some very serious project activities as well. But we don't care, nor should we care. What we need to do is facilitate the effective use of, let's call it intake, prioritization, funding, and then execution.
Great.
So if we look at this from a project and portfolio management perspective, actually it even starts before this, getting the right intake, identifying the business cases before we even get started, ranking and prioritizing those business cases, getting the right, you know, either benefits, cost plans, the teams associated with that, what kind of resources that you're going to need for that, identifying funding prioritization, which is our portfolio process, allocating resources, and then executing.
And so the one thing I will say though is how do we get that loop tighter? Meaning all those things, if they're disconnected before you ever get to execution, how are you going to learn from your customers? So what we want is that we want that feedback loop to be happening quick so that we actually do have a great idea. We put products out there into the market, we get feedback so that we actually can go build the right thing. So what's fun is to see how this model is turning into something we do much faster and not that takes 3 months, that takes 3 months, that takes 3 months.
Yeah, and as we look, just before we get into this, we've already noticed we're dealing with work in process here in both cases. The other component to this and the other dimension, which is something that we're investigating now, is the whole notion of the steady state activity. So when you're looking at investments, you're actually looking at the success of the investments that you've already executed on. So when a product exists, how you're going to determine additional funding for that is the success of that product, whether it's success classified in the revenues generated or the people that are using it or the customer reviews, whatever that is. We really need to understand not only what we're doing in work in process, but what we've done and the benefit to that to the company, and use that as a feedback into what our next iteration of work in process is. So these are some of the concepts that we're wrestling with right now.
So I love that you brought up work in process, because there's so many times when people always ask, well, how can I double my throughput? How can I get more done with the same amount of people that I have? And I'm actually going to tell you, it starts with the portfolio. So this is an emotional story for us, and that's, so I started working in product, I think, a year and a half ago, and we looked at our portfolio, and we had about 22 initiatives. 22 initiatives for 150 engineers seemed a little bit much. And you know what we did? We went to 4 initiatives. And by going to 4 initiatives, we didn't add more people, we didn't change dev processes, we changed the way we planned. And what we did is we funded 4 things that mattered a lot to the business and made sure everybody knew why we were doing that. We doubled our throughput. And that's why I think it's interesting, like we talk a ton about execution, but we need first the prioritization and the limiting of our work in progress at the top, at the portfolio level. Then you're going to get flow through your teams. And that's exactly what this talks about, is agreeing on business deliverables is actually critical for you to get any work done, because you need big things for people to want to get done, things that are valuable to your customer segment. And the way that we do that, you got to continue to plan. So we plan every quarter at that feature level, and we plan every 2 weeks at that story level. And why that's important is we're always checking in to say, is the work that we're completing actually pushing us forward on our business initiatives? So making sure that these 2 things are linked, what you did fund and what you're actually working on, is that bridge that ties them 2 together.
Right. Ready for the next one? So this is a look at the current integration. And by the way, we're doing additional work on our integrations as we go along. There's actually a phase 2 that's underway right now in what we call our Armstrong release. But we're mapping projects at the portfolio item level, and we're mapping what we call tasks at the portfolio item level as well. You can see the dimensions on the right, on the Rally side. One of the things you'll see not coming over is all the real work activities, because frankly that information is not relevant. From a project perspective, if we think of this as the business lens, what we care about really is how much does it cost? In other words, what am I funding? Who's working on it? And what am I getting for it? And what's the progress of what I'm getting for it? It's the business lens associated with the work product that is happening on the other side. Shoveling all that other information over there, in my mind, is sort of it's an intellectual exercise, but it really doesn't drive a whole lot of value. One of the things that we did as we worked with Rally on all of this, by the way, is challenged every precept that we had walking in. Why are we doing that? Why are we loading that stuff over? And by the way, we've still got some ideas or some challenges that we're working on right now, like the most optimal way to capitalize software in an agile world. We're working on these things. We want to do the right things, and we want to do them as elegantly as we possibly can. We have strategies today, but we're looking to break the mold and do this in a way that doesn't drive engineers, as an example, crazy, but it also satisfies auditors. So these are all concepts that we're struggling with as we speak right now. So if you look at this thing today, basically a project is initiated typically on our side, but it could be initiated on the Rally side. If that's the way that works, our integration will manage both sides of it. All right, the feature itself is managed on the Rally side, because frankly, that's where the build is. That's where you make the determination on what you're going to do. You're going to do all your estimating there. All we do is follow that activity. The team currently is going to emanate from Rally, and it's going to be fed into ours, because all we're doing is recording the usage of the resources, so you can see your total resource spend. All right, the budget, that's on our side. We own all of that.
Yeah, when I think about the 4 pillars of the portfolio, right, you have financials, work management, time tracking, project governance. What Rally is really good at is is really the work management piece. So that's the part that we have. What I love about this solution, and it really was focused on customers. When we started thinking about what are the problems that our customers, our joint customers have, it was that these two things were disconnected in a way that nobody had solved right before. And we kept saying, the feature is what matters. The feature is the marketable feature because marketing understands it, sales understands it, your customers understand that. They don't understand your high-level project. They actually don't understand your stories and tasks. They understand the feature. So that's where we focused, and it is different than anything else that's out there, so I'm really proud of that.
Yep. So if we look at this graphic, I know it's a bit of an eye chart, but up top, at the very top, is sort of a portfolio view, so that's PPM. And right at the lowest project there is actually the project that is sitting in Rally right now as an initiative. Of course, on the right-hand side, you can see the work product being built in Rally. And on the other side is actually a roadmap that is sitting there for the business user on the PPM side. So business lens, execution lens. The folks that naturally need to optimize their work where they need to work can live where they need to live.
Yeah, and what's fun for us is being able to take advantage of our strength. So if we look at the Agile Central screen out here in the bottom right, what that is a hierarchy, and that hierarchy is your initiatives breaking down into features, features breaking down into stories, stories into tasks, and those all automatically roll up. The importance of that goes two ways. First of all, I think about someone like Kurt, so VP of product, he's going to want to see his big bets, where you got investment for the year, are they being worked on, are they on schedule, and like what am I going to finish on time, right? But the same thing, think of the opposite. We think too much top down. We keep saying, oh, management's going to love that. Don't forget the other side, and that is that developer who's pulling that task and pulling that story, that they can see why that work's important. They can see why that work got funded. That's just as important.
We're ahead of schedule.
We're ahead of schedule, and that never happens.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I like it.
Congrats.
All right, so you pull all this stuff together. By the way, we're not there yet, but we're working on the problem every day. Right? So, you know, it's important for you guys to understand that. This is like, I wonder, as we've had the dialogues we've had over the last 6 or 8 months, how a company could actually try to make this paradigm come together themselves without all the, I don't know, subject matter expertise, vetting across multiple customers, all the rest of these things, and struggling with, frankly, some very significant problems. So I think the benefit when you look at these two organizations coming together for you guys is that you're going to see an elegant solution that will become more and more elegant over time. So now from a PPM perspective, we want more agile delivery. PPM is not about waterfall. Again, this is about prioritization, funding. You want to execute with a Barbie doll, I don't care. I think that's a stretch, but anyway. And from Agile?
Yeah, from my perspective, it's all I want from the execution side is to go build something amazing for my customers and let me go build it. Quit asking me to build something and putting me on something else. Let me build it. Let me actually provide value. Let me be proud of our work. So that's what we want to do here.
Right. So when we look at it, it's not waterfall and agile, it's actually strategy and execution. That's what we're really talking about. We want to be inclusive as opposed to, you know, indoctrinating, if you will. We want to understand what your problems are, and we want to deliver to you real world solutions, right? I think we have time for a couple questions.
Yeah, so the last thing I'll say is these feedback loops are critical. They're like I tell this a lot, so the two waves. My wave as a product person is to talk about the market, talk about my customers, and do it in a way that they understand the why. But I better be listening to the people who do the work. And that's another wave, and those keep crashing, you nullify. So how do we amplify? And that means you get them on the same page and you let feedback go both ways. Top-down feedback, bottoms-up feedback. So thank you guys very much for your time. If you have questions, we'll put a mic up here and you guys can ask away.
Mic right there. Anybody have any questions? We are that good.
5 minutes.
I mean, it's amazing.
So you said that you're working on it every day, but you're not there yet. Can you give us a little info as to where you are?
Well, what you saw here, and I'm going to do a little bit more in our roadmap, but basically the integration is already in place, all right, it's released. So we're mapping portfolio items up to the project. The project is initiated, flows into Rally, or vice versa, and then the portfolio items flow the status back and forth. In this release that we're working on right now, we're integrating teams. And we're actually using our time API, though I'm not sure we're going to be bringing time in just yet from Rally, but it's an option for us. It's there, the APIs are in place. So we'll have all of those. There's a lot of other things that are disconnected in my mind, or let's not say disconnected, but just we need more vetting. As an example, we've got a lot of customers where the teams are established long-term. There may be a 2-year project that is defined, and it may be defined in PPM initially, and then it creates a project team on the Rally side, and then that's a steady state funded team for 2 years. I've heard that a lot. So we got to wrestle with some of those. What I don't want to do is the wrong thing, all right? Because there's a point of view that Rally has. We need to be very respectful of how we do this right. So those are some of the issues that we're wrestling with. And there's, I alluded to it before, software capitalization in my mind is a big thing. I'd love to be able to do this so it's auditable. Like, you know, the auditors come in and sign off on it and we can do it without a timesheet. So far we haven't quite cracked that code, but we're certainly working on that. But beyond that, there's probably another 50 issues that we still have to get through, right? The big thing, and I talked to Ryan and what's your name?
Steve.
Steve, yeah.
Nice
I
talk.
just met him today for the first time. But anyway, when we first met, they were talking about integrating financials into Rally, and I said, don't do it, because the minute you let finance into your execution, you basically screw it all up. So we want to do things, as you guys well know, we want to do things in a way that allow flexibility and optimization on this side and provide control, visibility in a way that it like breathes. My worst fear in my mind is to gum up Agile so that some other thing happens because we screwed it up. So that's not going to happen. I know the Rally folks wouldn't allow it to happen, but it's not going to happen for us as well. We just don't want to do those kind of things. So this is a ongoing, I think about this and then they challenge, or they think about it and we challenge. It's going on all the time.
I think the best part though is now we have joint customers that when we come in, because the first version of this really is where we believe most customers are, how they're working, but we know everybody's going to have those fringes. So it's really about getting something out that people could try and have success with, and then getting feedback on that so we can make it better.
Yes.
So in that state, where is time recorded? Is it still recorded in CAPPM?
Time is currently recorded in PPM, but we're planning on capturing the time from Rally.
Yeah, so we're actually right now building the fact that in our time tracker that you can do time directly to a portfolio item, so that feature, so it can just come nicely back into PPM.
Yep.
So in that same vein, resource allocation, as we improve our resource allocation in PPM, how do we bring the work to the team in an Agile world?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're still working on that.
So one thing I'll say we've done is what we call, to see you, list of collaborators, right? Because we have an advantage here, and that is when we see a feature and we see stories and tasks, we can actually see who worked on all those things. So wouldn't it be nice, instead of you just manually putting that up, if I actually told you who worked on those things, and we could roll that back with the financial information that he has about labor rates and things like that.
Yes.
So those are the types of things we're thinking about.
Yeah, so that's coming in Armstrong. So we're basically rolling it from Rally. The second piece, which I think is what you were referring to, is starting the planning on this side and driving it down. That's a deeper conversation. Okay. And we need to be really mindful of how we do that, do it right.
Probably last one.
Yeah.
Is the end goal to keep PPM and Agile as separate products?
Yes.
And just integrate them? Never going to become one?
You never say never, but I don't see the reason why they become one. I mean, frankly, the scariest thought is that two business processes that in themselves have tremendous value to their customers become one that maybe is less for both. So it's not in our plans to put all that together.
Thank you.
Okay, with that,
I think we're done.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.